the actions that we have seen coming from the White House and this administration in the nearly 2 years since the election have raised all kinds of signal flares, alarm bells. We have to defend the fundamental values and ideals of the American democracy.
This was some interview, Hillary Clinton slamming President Trump, warning that his authoritarian tendencies could damage American democracy as we know it. America's A-Team is lined up. Brad Blakeman, former Deputy Assistant of President George W. Bush. Richard Fowler, Fox News contributor. And James Freeman of the Wall Street Journal editorial page and a Fox News contributor. Gentlemen, today, I think James should sit between you two guys.
Oh.
Right? Would that be more fair?
We're going to start out like that, huh?
It's the end of democracy as we know it, Brad. It's over, man. You can take the L out of lover.
Well, if Hillary says it, it must be true. But, you know, Hillary should take the advice of General MacArthur. Old soldiers don't die, they just fade away. She needs to go away. The Democratic Party is full of has-beens. You've got Biden and Hillary and Bernie. And
Fowler?
And Fowler, yeah.
Poor guy over here.
But the other thing is, if you don't have has-beens, you have socialist Democrats.
Oh, come
so
on.
I think their party is in crisis. I wouldn't, if I were advising Democrats, is Hillary just needs to buy an island and rule that.
Did we miss something that happened in the green room? Because you guys came in hot. Okay, what do you
listen,
think?
I won't address some of Brad's comments, but here's what you do know. What the president said today in the interview with Hill TV, where he says, I don't have an attorney general, that sort of speaks to what Hillary Clinton is talking about in this op-ed. Remember, Jeff Sessions, while appointed by the president, serves the American people. And when you say, I don't have an attorney general, when he took an oath of the Constitution, I think that's what's problematic, and that's what she's speaking to. Attacking faithful workers at the Justice Department that uphold our Constitution every day is very problematic, and it's undemocratic.
James?
Yeah, I think if you're going to say who is the authoritarian, not by leaked anonymous quotes, but by actions, you'd say which candidate ran in 2016 arguing to limit the first two amendments of our Constitution? Which candidate wanted to limit the ability of people to make a documentary film about her? We're getting these scare stories, but there's no there there. The whole case, it's a lot of adjectives and it's a lot of references to his tweets and his comments, but where is the fundamental attack on American institutions? It hasn't happened.
Well, here she is talking about the implications of just that she discussed, the threat to American democracy on our midterm elections.
If we don't have a very big rejection of those tendencies come in this midterm election, I think you will only see more of these attacks on our institutions, on our norms, on the rule of law that could do lasting damage.
You want her to go to an island, is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, they're wealthy enough. Just buy an island and rule that.
Keep dreaming. She's not going to. I think it's hard for people like Hillary Clinton to keep their mouth shut during a time like this. I mean, when you want to hold back, because the resistance on the left is so strong against this administration and this president.
It was from day one. The resistance continues, but to no avail. You know, if I were advising Republicans, I think the strategy for the midterms should be you can't argue with success. Donald Trump is like a president we haven't seen probably ever, but he is getting results for the American people. Unorthodox? Absolutely. Sometimes his rhetoric is over the top, for sure. But the bottom line is he's honoring the promises. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump has underpromised and over-delivered on the economy, on taking on our adversaries. So Donald Trump is doing exactly what he promised to do, which may be a little foreign to people who listen to politicians.
Interesting. Sorry, what was your slogan again? It was...
You can't argue with success.
Okay.
Here lies the problem. The president, the rhetoric, you talk about his rhetoric, but truth be told, when you're the president of the United States, your rhetoric actually matters. And when the president of the United States goes out and says that the journalists are enemies of the people, that is problematic. And that speaks to why our democracy is in danger. The journalists have a job to be accountable. They have a job to hold the government accountable. They have a job to ask tough questions.
The president is being adversarial,
Don't
which is
call
exactly what needs to be done.
Don't call them enemy of the people. No president's ever done that.
Well, he's got First Amendment rights just like the rest of us. And I think if you want to talk about a threat to our First Amendment rights, you think about his predecessor and the investigation of this network and the Associated Press. But I think what's also disturbing in that Clinton interview is, in terms of respect for our institutions, she's talking about how the people who were not elected in the government need to control the person who was elected president.
Now I'm going to have to stop you right there. Let's be very clear, and let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is Jeff Sessions. He was appointed by his colleagues, and he was appointed by the president, approved by the United States Senate. He has a job to manage the Justice Department, which upholds the Constitution.
I'm going to stop this for just a second, because we want to get this breaking news in here, because we're going to transition to Brett Kavanaugh. And George W. Bush has just released a new statement in the wake of all of this, and he is saying, quote, "Laura and I have known and respected Brett Kavanaugh for decades, and we stand by our comments the night Judge Kavanaugh was nominated. He's a fine husband, father, and friend, and a man of the highest integrity. He will make a superb justice of the Supreme Court of the United States." And he referenced back to the comments he made when Judge Kavanaugh was nominated. In those comments, he called him a brilliant jurist who has faithfully applied the Constitution and laws throughout his 12 years on the D.C. Circuit. George W. Bush standing behind Kavanaugh.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see, and you are seeing, Republicans in the Senate who might have been on the fence now getting behind him. If what's happening here is it appears to be that Judge Kavanaugh's accuser, Mrs. Ford, is not going to come forward and share her story, given this opportunity, there's really not an argument to hold up this process, because outside of her testimony, there's not any evidence to date.
Anita Hill was on Good Morning America this morning urging a pause in the hearings. I don't know if that happens or not. Here's the tweet from the president. "Supreme Court is one of the main reasons I got elected president," he writes. It continues, "I hope Republican voters and others are watching and studying the Democrats' playbook." Do we think as a group, by Monday, does she show up or not?
No, I don't think so. I think she's being used by the Democratic Party for, again, their resistance against Donald Trump and this nominee, to thwart his nomination, to delay it, to derail it. It's not going to work.
Same question, Richard.
I don't know. I think we have to wait to see. But here's what we've got to do. We've got to view this whole entire process with clear eyes and very carefully. Both Judge Kavanaugh and Professor Ford deserve due process. They have an ability to get it, but it can't happen. And I would urge Republicans, if they want to retain the United States Senate, having 7 men question a woman who is making bombshell allegations is not good look. It's not good for the party, especially.
It's not about the look. It's about the Constitution.
But she deserves to be
honoring
heard.
the process.
Exactly.
She was heard.
Richard, what is
she
your,
was not.
She was heard.
Under oath.
What is your consideration for the man, Kavanaugh, being the accused?
I think he deserves the right to be heard. He deserves the right to face his accuser. I think he has to do it under oath. And I do believe that because we know the Judiciary Committee on both sides.
So here's the problem. He's
partisan.
agreed to that. He said, "I will be there Monday." He's been invited. He said yes. She's been invited. She has not responded.
Well, let me finish here. I think because there is so much partisanship on the Judiciary Committee, right, what we know is this. In 1991, George H.W. Bush asked the FBI to investigate and talk to both parties and make a nonpartisan.
They were both adults and they were federal employees.
Hold on. So just so I'm clear, obviously she has responded, but that was she wants the FBI investigation to take place before she would sit down. Is that a reasonable request?
I think it's very reasonable because you have an impartial individuals look at this case who are professionals and make a determination of where the evidence is.
We got to cruise. James, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't understand. I think most people don't understand why you need a further investigation for her to share her story.
I think 1 in 3 women.
She has an opportunity if she wants.
1 in 3 women understand.
She is not entitled to determine the rules of the Senate or the Constitution. She's given an opportunity.
Lindsey Graham's words.
She's given an opportunity. Either she takes it or she doesn't, but she should not hijack the process.
This is exactly why Republicans have a problem with white suburban women.
No, it has nothing to do with white suburban women.
You guys are sitting too far apart from each other for a reason.
Right.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you,
gotta leave it
Richard.
there.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Leaders from all over the world will be in New York next week for the United Nations General Assembly meeting. Special Report will be there live Tuesday. Tonight, Brett Baer talks to one of those leaders who's already here in the U.S., Georgian Prime Minister Makhmuka Bakhtadze.
Shannon, thank you. Joining us now, the Prime Minister of Georgia. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Hi, Brett.
You're meeting with officials here in Washington. You have a long-standing relationship with the U.S., obviously. Tell me about that relationship now with this administration.
Thank you, Brett. Firstly, I would like to express my deep condolences to the victims of the Hurricane Florence. Under President Trump administration, U.S.-Georgia security cooperation is enhancing. It has never been as strong as it is now, and we truly appreciate this.
You have, obviously, an issue with Russia. Russia occupies part of your country. How much as of now?
Well, unfortunately, Russia has occupied 20% of our territory, and it still continues its aggressive policy towards Georgia. Many Georgians had to leave their homes. So Russia occupies two historical regions of Georgia. Government of Georgia is, of course, fully committed to the peaceful resolution of this conflict. Unfortunately, Russia is trying again to undermine our peaceful initiatives.
President Trump's critics here in the U.S. argue that he and his administration have not been tough enough against Russia. From your point of view, do you think that this administration is?
We are very much encouraged with the President Trump decision to have a dialogue with Russia, because there is no alternative to dialogue. But of course we should take into consideration the regional context as well, because the turbulence is growing. But the direct interaction with Russia on the highest level possible, I think, is really very positive and fruitful.
You're in your new job, but from your knowledge of how the last administration here in the U.S. dealt with Georgia and how this one did, I mean, can you give some perspective to people?
In the last 2 years, with the common efforts, we pushed this relationship to another level, and it is on the all-time high level now. We truly appreciate these initiatives of President Trump and his administration to be engaged with Georgia.
One of your foreign policy goals is to have Georgia join NATO. It doesn't seem like that's possible in the current construct with 20% of your country occupied by Russia. Are there ways around that?
The territorial integrity and sovereignty of Georgia is a red line for us. Historically, both regions are part of our state. Yes, the membership of NATO is our main priority. We are actually continuously punching above our weight. Although our economy is not large, we are spending more than 2% of our GDP for military. Our relationship with the United States and our friendship, I would say, is tested in combats. Our soldiers, shoulder to shoulder, are fighting with international terrorism in Afghanistan and in Iraq. We are the largest per capita contributor to these international missions. So we are very serious about it.
You know, there are people in the U.S. who worry about Article 5 of NATO and that the U.S. could be drawn into World War III because of Russia's actions, frankly. What do you say to those people who are concerned about that?
If Georgia joins NATO, this will make our region much more predictable and sustainable, which is in the best interest of Russia.
You are going to spend a number of days here meeting with officials in Washington, and then you're going to go to the UN for the General Assembly meeting. If you have a message for the American people from your country, what is it?
We pushed to another level our cooperation in the field of security and military cooperation. And we have also very good economic cooperation, and we do believe that the free trade agreement can be a very good step forward. Georgia is a gateway for 8 landlocked countries, 2 states from South Caucasia and 5 states from Central Asia, plus Afghanistan. This is one of the fastest growing consumer markets in the world. We would like to see more American companies doing business in Georgia.
Mr. Prime Minister, we appreciate your time. Enjoy your stay in the U.S.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
It was a pleasure.